Hello, wonderful. This is Sarah, and I'm here with Tiffany Harnsongkram. And you may have recognized her from a previous podcast episode. And gosh, you just meet some of these people in life, and you just think, okay, we were just supposed to meet. We're just supposed to know each other. We're supposed to connect. And Tiffany is definitely one of those people. So we honestly wanted a chance to catch up and then want to bring you in for part of our conversation. How are you, Tiffany?
Yeah, doing really well. Thank you.
So, we want to talk about reclaiming your power through conflict. And when you were sending me
Yeah.
some ideas of what to say, I was like, ooh, that one, that's amazing. So, tell people what you mean by that.
Well, to me, it is the juxtaposition, kind of the conflict is the highlight when you're tested. You have a situation that's brought to you, whether it's, I mean, in our context with divorce coaching, it's like your parents are disapproving or you're fighting over conflict, the custody of your kids, or you have a combative ex that is hurling abuses or not wanting to coordinate with different things. And it's your opportunity to really have that magnifying glass over, your identity, your boundaries, how you're going to show up in that moment, and what resources that you're going to extract from yourself, if you have those in there, to see. It's a fantastic training ground, actually. So I like conflict in that sense. It can be one of our greatest teachers.
And it's not a training ground people want to go through. But
Right.
as you were speaking, I kind of thought, well, how do I develop great bicep muscles without ever lifting a weight? Which is
Yeah.
sometimes how do I get good at conflict without going through conflict or learning how to show up in conflict differently?
Well, we have conflict all day long, I mean, some more than others, and there are times that we can sort that out. But any time that you've got somebody that's just said something to you or that disagrees with you, or maybe, you want to go to Chinese food and your spouse wants to go to this other, place, we can take those kinds of opportunities to go, why, okay, why am I bothered about this? First of all, like, why is this an issue for me? But then we can find those kinds of little hooks and triggers about, well, he always gets to pick, or he always get, like, what is the reason why? And then if we solve in those little times, then we're much more lucid when larger conflicts come about. But I think conflict is, how we say contrast. It's giving us options of different choices that we can make with our own reactions, with our own emotional reactions or perspectives about why things are the way they are, and who actually has the power to decide.
Mm,
Am I the one with the power here?
mm. And how to show up as your most powerful self. Like, even
Right.
if you may feel powerless in a situation, and obviously in some points of conflict, we have more personal power and decision making than others. But do you think about it as kind of showing up as what version of yourself do you want to bring to this conversation?
I don't think of it in that way so much as I think of it as, how am I seeing myself in this situation? And the biggest trouble that we get in, that I've noticed in conflictual situations, is the negation of our power that's already there. We're not admitting how powerful we are, and we don't want to take responsibility necessarily for how powerful we are, because that can be really scary. Having a sense of total freedom, like, if I want to, I can set the house on fire right now. Yes, I can, but I don't. But I have the power to do that. I will never admit it or tell anybody that I have the power, to do amazingly wonderful things. I have the power to build my own businesses. I have the power to, enrich myself. I've got the power to travel. We're much more comfortable in saying, like, they're keeping me from doing that, or I don't have enough this to do that, or because I have to make these other people happy, I can't travel, or because I can't, because I have to take care of so and so, I can't build my own business. Or, like, we're constantly giving away our power to other people, and we get really upset about it, and really frustrated and bitter about it. Then when we kind of remember who we are, remember how powerful we are, and that we're the ones that get to make the decisions here for ourselves. I mean, of course, we have to live with the consequence of those decisions, but we get to make the decisions. And
So
because of that, it's a different way of, it's just remembering.
within your divorce coaching, what
Yeah.
are some steps that you take people through to start to reclaim that power?
This one isn't necessarily a particular process that I have about reclaiming power. There are some exercises that I take people through. One of which is remembering what you have accomplished and remembering what you have overcome in the past. Because we have this terrible habit of like looking forward to all of the challenges and, oh, I have to do this and then I have to do this and, oh my gosh, this challenge. And we don't look backwards and just go, oh my gosh, look at what I just raised these, I just gave birth to these children. I just got myself out of debt. I just got this amazing job that I never thought I could get. We're like, okay, check, next, check the box and move on to the next without like really appreciating the amount of hardship we've overcome, the amount of resources we've had to gather to be able to go through the things and thrive in the ways that we have. So that's one of them. But also just in everyday life, when people get upset, like in the case of divorce, for example, oh, well, I can't do this because my ex-husband wouldn't be happy about this, or he might get upset if we decide to do that. And it's just the reminder of, okay, who are you allowing to make the decision here? What's the best decision for you? What's the best decision for your kids? Who are you giving the power to in this moment? And why are you not trusting yourself to make the absolute best decision for yourself and the kids, which is inevitably the best decision for everybody? Because when you're taking care of yourself and when you're taking care of your children, it's up to them to take care of themselves. And if everybody's taking care of themselves, we have a really healthy planet. We have really healthy people. You're just responsible for that bit of it. There's no way you can appease everyone else's needs while negating your own. It's really, functioning out of debt. So reminding, in all of those situations to stay with yourself.
So I always make a joke and say, in all my coaching, and Tiffany, I bet you're the same way. Within your coaching, no one ever comes and says, my mom, she was just so emotionally healthy. She was high functioning. She was confident. She felt really comfortable about who she was and, asked for help when appropriate, but then was self-reliant when appropriate. And she just had this really great balance and flow in life. And I'm just really messed up from that. I just, it's really bothered me. I have a lot of trauma left over from my mother being so emotionally healthy. And, we kind of, as
Right.
you giggle, it's like, yeah, but we tell ourselves, oh, if I do something for myself or invest in myself or take the time to get myself together, I'm doing a disservice to my kids or my job or whoever in my life I feel obligated to. However, no one ever says, I have such a high functioning, healthy, confident, emotionally healthy parent. It's really messed me up.
Yeah. And that kind of ties back to the idea of wealth too, because I've worked with really, really wealthy people. And when we consider, the amounts of life energy and the amount of time that we're willing to trade for money, because we want to give that to our kids, because we think that kids need money, they need to be taken care of. But the wealth that these extremely, financially wealthy people don't have is that emotional security, is that, the way to be with people, way to love themselves. Many times that part is missing. And when we think of the wealth that we want to pass on to our children, this is something that we built up in ourselves first. The idea of self-love, the idea of really understanding who you are and what you're here to do and how to love others, how to communicate with others, how to be in relationship to yourself and others. That's like wealth that nobody can touch, right? Like literally nobody can touch. And if you have that in yourself, it doesn't matter what conflict comes up in your life, it's not going to touch you. Or, if it's a physical one, you can recover very, very quickly, but you're solid. That's the kind of wealth that we need to build first, and then pass on to our children, so that they can handle whatever conflict is going to arise in their lives. That's a huge step up. When I see my kids, figuring out their own emotions and why they reacted in such a way with their sister, or that they were mirroring and now they're like, oh, you're projecting. Oh, that was just a mirror. It's hilarious. Like, yeah, yes.
Yes. Well, and I had that conversation with my son this week, and I said, the lessons you're having to learn are hard now, but the way these lessons will protect you long term, the gift of this, that, projecting, I'm not sure when that word became more, I guess maybe life coach knowledge, not necessarily common knowledge, but kind of life coach knowledge, divorce coach knowledge. But at some point, we certainly did not grow up understanding that concept, hearing that word, understanding manipulation, people trying to make you not trust yourself, trust them instead of you. We didn't grow up learning that.
No, really. And we were taught to kind of haggle and vie for power with others, rather than to figure out where true power comes from and how to work collaboratively with others so that we would all be in our power. That was, it was, how do you call it? Like a zero-sum game. If I have power, then you don't, right? And so you're always trying to figure out who's got the power, who's got more power, who can, make the move, and who can, like, it's really very destructive. And I'm not sure if this is coming from, biological programming or a scarcity program, kind of a fear program that we've got, but we need to get past that point to, be with ourselves and be with our own power, and allow other people to take responsibility for themselves and their own power. And when we're jumping in their place, it's not helping them.
No.
When we're jumping in and taking over their power and making decisions for them and quote unquote helping them, many times it's actually disabling them. It's a negation of their power.
And I had a conversation with a personal friend this week about that, and she said, I keep saving my children. And her children are young, they're 9 and below, but she said, I've got to stop saving my children because they're never going to learn how to save themselves. And we're not talking about the children being physically abused or starving or anything like that. It's little things that, talking about going back to those little negotiations, those little points of power, those little points of conflict, and learning from that, so that when the big things come, those muscles have been built. And she recognized that she was not building those muscles in her kids. And thought, probably should.
Really good point, because many times the conflicts that we have are about us not staying in our own lane and going and trying to help somebody else, and them not wanting our help. Them not want, you need to do this, you should do that for your own health, you need to, and then them pushing back on it, instead of saying, you need to solve your addiction problem, or you need to stop lying, or we're not going to do this and this. We have a lot of conflict over that because we're all up in their business, and they're a sovereign person. They get to decide if they want to be an addict or not. They get to decide, if they need to evolve or seek help, or if that's something that they even want to do. And you get to decide what you have power over, which is your own boundary. I refuse to be with you when you're drinking. I refuse to trust you with something because you've lied to me in the past. It doesn't need to be conflictual. It's just when everyone is very clear on who has the power to decide what, and that you're going to have conflict when you're all up in other people's power, then it becomes very clean, and it's not messy. It's not this big dramatic thing. It's just a statement of, this is what I would like. This is how I am best. This is how I want to live. And now you decide, what do you want?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sucks out the drama of the conversation. I was talking to a client about that and said, your kids need you to lead by example, not become obsessed with how to change your kids, or become obsessed with how to change your spouse or your friends or your whatever. And it's a lady kind of laughed, and she goes, gosh, it's just so hard to think about your own problems. It's so much more convenient to think about what your daughter should do, your sister should do, your coworker should do.
Exactly. It's much funner to clean other people's houses, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Agreed.
And much more ineffective.
Yes.
When I say, what's your life strategy? How are you looking to build your confidence, build your wealth, build your health, build your relationships, build your emotional wealth? And, they say, oh, I'm going to worry about everyone else. It's like, oh, well, okay, well, that's one way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one way to do not much of anything.
Right.
Truly.
Right. Yeah. So would it be okay with you if we both kind of described what it felt like when we were in our own personal power? Kind of like if somebody needs, because I think that would be a really cool thing for our audience to hear. And you're welcome to go first, or I can go first. I don't mind.
Probably the most poignant memory that I have of, a really, really stark memory that I have of a time when I had to reclaim my power was when I was fighting for custody with my ex-husband, because that was cutting to like the deepest, most urgent part of me, right? Where I felt like my reaction was, if he has this much time with the kids, or if he's talking to the kids in this way, then it's going to remove my ability to be a good mother. It's going to remove my identity as at the time I was a stay-at-home mother, or as a good mother, because I felt like that was important to be a stay-at-home mother when they were little in that time. And when I had the realization that there was nothing he could do to make me a bad mother, there was nothing that he could do that would make me not give my kids the love and the support and the all the things that I wanted to give them, the richness that I wanted to give them. He didn't have any control over that. I had mentally given him that power when it just wasn't true. Mm-hmm. And then when I realized that no matter what happened, the girls and I would be fine. Mm-hmm. We would always have that relationship. Now, he and the girls were a different story. I don't know what would happen there. That is their business. And unfortunately, I don't have any control over that, or fortunately. But, when it came to me, I was going to be whoever I wanted to be, however I wanted to be, regardless of how he was.
I love that. I love that example. And I could give some of that example in my own life, but I won't. I'll choose something else and I didn't know what I was going to say, as we asked that question and talked about that question. But gosh, what I heard you say is staying in your own lane, regardless of what you do. This is who I'm going to be. This is who my kids are going to see. And your darkness cannot steal my light, or your light has nothing to do with my light.
It doesn't even shadow it. Like there is no shadow there, it just, No,
I love it. So I think when I think about standing in my power, it's when there's a problem to solve, or something, a life event or decision to make, something happens in life, conflict arises. And I know how solid I am in someone not being able to get me not to trust myself. Right. So in times of the past, every time there was a decision to make or a problem to solve, what do you think I should do? What do you think I should do? What do you think I should do? Because I did not have that own muscle strengthened in my own life of, okay, how have I handled this in the past? What worked, what didn't? How do I, how can I use the skills that have worked for me in the past to bring into this situation, to bring into this problem, to bring in this decision to be made? And going back to what you said before, like we get really afraid of our future and we don't take inventory of our past, of where our strengths are, what has worked for us. where we have been strong. And so I'll tie it back to what you said too. And I feel really solid in my power. It's like, okay, I've handled worse. I trust myself. When someone tries to get me not to trust myself, I recognize
Yeah.
what's happening. I'm going to, not double down, but be solid in who I am and really feel confident. And obviously, that doesn't mean you don't ask for advice all the time. It just means standing in your power means not being thrown off course by someone who may not have your best interest in mind.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Anybody who would want you to veer from what your inner voice is telling you is not good for that situation. I mean, they might be a little bit misguided. They may want to try to help, but clearly it's not good emotional hygiene, because you have to stay true to your core. You have to stay true to yourself. Even if it seems like a good idea, it's not a good idea for you right now. It might be a good idea for somebody else or at another time. It's not a good idea for you right now. You're the only one that knows.
I love the word emotional hygiene. I'm so glad you brought that up. I love it. Well, Tiffany, tell people where they can find more out about you and your work.
Yeah, I've got a free Facebook group called From Divorce to Destiny, which is all about how to deal with divorce consciously, especially if you're on a spiritual track. It's, there's a lot of emotional hygiene stuff on there. And I do coaching on fromdivorcetodestiny.com. So, whether you need like somebody in your corner 24/7, or you just want people to chat with and commiserate with, but also see a different way of doing things, to see kind of a loving, conscious way of doing these transitions, and not having it be this kind of warfare or this ongoing pain or guilt, but have it be just a really beautiful transition that's possible too. So there are the resources for that. And so I'm easy to find. From Divorce to Destiny.
From Divorce to Destiny. Tiffany, thank you for helping us today on our journey to becoming toxic person proof.
Thank you.